Hey everyone, welcome back to Murder Drones Week, and today we're covering a fan episode called Intermission. So, let's just get straight into the point of this video. Now, I'm sure you're aware of my stances of episode 4 and episode 5 individually. Episode 4, second best episode of the show, only topped by episode 7. And trust me, that is a high bar to clear. But, yeah, it has great character moments, amazing music, and one of, if not my favorite scene from the whole frickin' show. And that episode 5 was good, but not great. It was probably the second worst episode behind Heartbeat. So, you know what? Let's just talk about this, alright? So, this episode fills in the much needed gap between episode 4 and 5, and therefore honestly kind of makes episode 5 better, because one of the issues I had with that episode was, how did we get from sleeping on a bus to Uzi going into NMV's brains? Like, there was no, no connection between those events, which is exactly what Intermission provides for us. So, oh yeah, it also seems like Uzi kind of got control of her solver abilities a bit quickly after the whole incident with episode 4. So, again, this kind of solves that issue, so, let's get into this, shall we? So, this automatically starts off with a disclaimer saying that all the rights to the show belong to Liam Vickers and Glitch, and that he's not affiliated with either of them. By him, I mean Golan Fuchsia, the person behind this. Oh, and by the way, the person behind the thumbnail is animated thing, the same person who's currently working on Insecurity, which I'm very excited for. And he clarifies that it's meant to take place between episodes 4 and 5, you know. It was already pretty noticeable once you get into the episode, but I'm glad they still put mention at the beginning, because sometimes people can be a bit too slow to catch on to things. Like, trust me, I've been the same way. Like, it took me way too long to catch on to the obvious hints that Newsy was a good couple. like, seriously though, quick side note, this show really is what made me such a fan of shipping. So, anyways, thanks for that, Liam. Anyways, let's finally actually get into the episode itself. I know I've said that 3 times now, but still. So, the episode begins with Uzi having a nightmare of the previous episode's events. You know, like killing, ripping apart, and consuming everyone at Camp 98.7. A nightmare which she wakes up from after a very mild jump scare. And she wakes up and it shows she's actually trying to get rid of this absolute solver thing by, booting up a virus removal program, but it constantly fails. And N takes notice of Uzi's problems, and so decides to set up some flying lessons with her, him, and V, so she can learn to properly control her abilities, so that if she goes feral again, there'll be more assurance that she can either take back control of her own body, or, not be as, murdery, I guess. I don't know. Just kind of put the nightmares at ease a bit. Now, the idea of this makes Uzi ecstatic, but V's a lot less excited about the concept. But eventually, after a good N and V moment, which, by the way, I really like how this episode kind of explores V's dynamics with everyone else. We don't really get a lot of episodes on that. Like, she's such a good character, and yet we don't really see her relationships explored too much. Which, also, fun fact, the show was originally going to be about N and V instead of Uzi and N. So, you really had to screw her over, didn't you, Liam? But hey, at least we got Uzi out of it. But, yeah, eventually V agrees to do it, albeit reluctantly. So, the first idea they have is to try the baby bird method, which is to drop Uzi off a cliff and let her instincts kick in and let her basically just fly on instinct. Look, N, your heart's in the right place, but your brain isn't. Anyways, yeah, that really doesn't work out, but luckily N manages to capture in time before she goes splat and no more episode 5, or 6, or 7, or 8. But, yeah, after that, they decide to try several different methods besides that, which then goes into a very cool montage, which, by the way, if you believe this episode to be canon, which I do, then that means that Bald Uzi is canon! Yay! And then they decide to start with her first actual flying test, in which she goes through several hoops, does a few tricks, and finally goes through a bus, which, yeah, she has flashbacks to the whole, murdering everybody thing, and, yeah, she fumbles at the last second. So, yeah, Uzi kinda sorta does the whole, zombie drone thing once again, and ends up flying off and biting her own finger off to stabilize her temperature. Oh my god. God, I hope that this thing gets fully animated. So, they decide to get her down to the ground and blast her so she'll shut off and reboot. So, yeah, they try to get her to the ground, and, of course, Zombie Uzi does a pretty good number on them. First, she goes after V, crushes her skull against a wall and, damages her head. But, yeah, then she starts to kind of beating Zombie Uzi senseless. And, of course, prior to this, En couldn't bring himself to, shoot his girlfriend. But, yeah, now he's actually willing to shoot her, but, he can't really get locked on in time. And, yeah, gets sealed in some kind of solver dome. Where did this come from? Since when was this canon? And starts getting bashed around said dome. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Let me just play it for you. But, yeah, eventually he does make the shot and succeed. And, yeah, Uzi's, programming gets properly restored. So she's no longer a zombie, and yeah, she immediately notices that her hands are now claws, and she nearly killed her boyfriend. But yeah, then V, probably still thinking that she's under the influence of sin, starts shooting at her, or maybe it's just in a blind rage, I really don't know. But anyways, she starts shooting at her, and she flies away. And then, after she flies away, well, I'm just gonna play the clip.
Why did you do that?
And we did things your way, and it didn't work. So now we're doing things my way.
You can't kill her. She didn't mean to go crazy.
Oh, so she can beat us senseless and we're just supposed to be okay with that. I see. This was a bad idea from the start. But you didn't want to listen to me because you're so insistent on fixing her.
Because she's our friend.
She's your friend. You're all I got, and I'm not risking that for some stupid worker. I'm taking her out, whether you like it or not.
Wait! No, you can't!
So then she flies off to deliver on that promise, and then En goes to fly after Uzi too to make sure that V doesn't get to her first. Makes sense, right? So eventually, V does find Uzi in a broken down, dilapidated building, kind of like curled up in her wings like in episode 4, in a very apologetic state. And which makes sense, she just nearly killed 2 people, although she didn't really seem as sorry for, actually murdering, like, what was it, 6 people? I don't know how many people she killed in episode 4, I can't recall. But, yeah, this actually reminds V of back when she was a worker drone, back when the Gala Massacre happened, and when she was converted into the same kind of zombie drone by Sin. So, it kind of, this is actually a pretty clever scene. Like, I'm glad that they took the first character to have been infected, like the original zombie drone, and had her be the one to nearly kill Uzi, the most recent zombie drone, because Uzi's current state reminds V of hers when she was in that situation. It's very clever. So, of course, she decides to let her go for now. And then N sees them both and flies down and tackles Uzi into a hug. And then they're atop the corpse spire gazing at the stars. And Uzi reassures N that those lessons did help. And then V comes in with another snarky remark, and then Uzi points out that at least N is trying to help, but V mentions he's meddling with things he doesn't understand, and that they barely even know how to handle themselves. Keep in mind the word barely. They barely understand how to take care of themselves. They barely remember what happened. Keep that in mind. That means that they still remember something, even if, again, barely. So then Uzi formulates Episode 5's plan to hack into their minds to recover the memories and possibly, help them along. And then, of course, threatens Uzi by taking her head off or something. And Uzi mocks this, and V pushes her off the corpse spire. But luckily she knows how to fly now, so happy ending for all. Yay. Except it's not the end, is it? Because we still have 4 more episodes of the actual show to go. I say that like it isn't commonly accepted this is canon now. So, we've explored what makes it such a good episode, but now I want to talk about the main thing that makes it such a good episode. How it portrays V. So, in my eyes, V was always kind of overshadowed by the rest of the cast. Don't get me wrong, she was still good, probably my 4th favorite character behind Doll, N, and Uzi. But it still feels like her story was kind of overshadowed by that of N and Uzi. N had his dynamic with Sin, as well as, all the other stuff, like the relationship with Uzi. Uzi had the relationship with N, as well as being the main character. Whereas V was, to me, was always kind of like that past crush of N who's just kind of tagging along for the ride. In my eyes, she didn't really have much depth or story compared to the other two. So I like how this episode kind of goes in on her story, if only a little bit, to, make her a better character than she already was. So this episode portrays her really well. She does deep down care about Uzi, even if she's not willing to admit it, because she sees herself in Uzi. There's a direct parallel, even in the original show, that you can draw. Uzi is the zombie drone who has nearly killed her, best friend or boyfriend at this point. Much like V, she was the original zombie drone, and she almost killed the person she cared about most, much like Uzi did. And that's what makes her so good in this. You can see the parallels; they're actively pointed out in this episode. And I like that it also portrays, she may care about Uzi, but she's still not willing to get her hands dirty if it means, solving a wider issue. Unlike N, who can't bring himself to, harm Uzi. Well, mostly. But, yeah. I feel like, V is what makes this episode as good as it is. Of course, everyone else has good roles, and all the voice acting is amazing, but V is definitely the highlight of this episode. But I want to go a bit deeper. I feel like another theme this episode covers is trauma and confronting and forgiving your past. So, as we can tell by the parallels that I drew earlier, V sees a lot of her old situation in Uzi, in the scene where she goes to confront her for the last time. But in a way, that means that when she looks into Uzi, she sees the same scared little worker that she once was when she was in that exact situation all those years ago back at the Elliott Manor. And so she sees all of that trauma, all the pain in Uzi. So in a way, when she forgives Uzi, she's also in some sort of way forgiving herself and her past. She's confronted her past mistakes, and she's forgiven them. She knows how to live with them now. So that's all I really have to say. I don't really think my commentary can do this episode justice, so you should go watch for yourself. Well, that's about all I have to say on this, so see you later. Over and out.